Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage. Get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage. To get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage. To get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage. In the jail, I got the exclusive reporting from a witness in the Pennsylvania jail that he answered two questions of jailers. One said, why'd you do it? And he said, I didn't do it. But the other one said, why'd you go to Idaho? And he said, the shopping's better in Idaho. First of all, I can't believe anybody would joke about something so horrendous. Second of all, if you're innocent and you're brought in, why would you say something like this? I wanted to get your read on that comment that was made in the Pennsylvania jail.
Yeah, the snarky sarcasm there is not the mark of an innocent person. It's just not. It is somebody who's narcissistic, smug, and thinks he's going to get away with it. But you just mentioned the internship that he applied for in Pullman, Washington, with the local police, where he wanted to help them with their digital forensic technology as if he was an expert. And that is ironic. Because, of course, it's the digital forensics, the cell phone, the car video, the videos of his car that got him caught. But the biggest thing, if you want to just chalk up if he is indeed guilty, how idiotic this is that he is in a death penalty state that doesn't have the insanity defense. It's the only state in the union that doesn't have the insanity defense. So maybe the shopping's better. Was he talking about shopping for victims? It's not just creepy, it's insulting to the justice.
He went to
grad, that master's, working towards a PhD. Are you puzzled by why this crime would be so messy, so bloody, and so prone to leaving DNA behind? Why would someone who knows so much about this commit a crime in this way?
Well, it's so interesting. First of all, the more you find out about him, I mean, it's just, he's really fascinating, and the trial hasn't even started. But, I think that his fascination with psychology first, in undergrad, and then criminology, and as a master's and a PhD student and all that, I think that a lot of that was to try to understand himself, as well as to try to commit the perfect crime. I think he's been struggling with some of these violent impulses that he has. For example, we know that he has this obsessive compulsive attitude towards food, that he's not just vegan, but he doesn't want to have anything that has been in a pot or on a plate that has touched meat. And that tells me that he might be scared that he could actually engage in cannibalism after killing somebody. So, I think that the reason why it was still
All right, so here's what's fascinating. They go in with all of their body cams, and when they sent us the video after a Freedom of Information request, guess what? I know you already know what I'm about to say. They actually redacted it. They turned most of that searching inside the apartment, all of it, in fact, into black video with no audio at all. So we cannot see inside the apartment. But remember this video? This was exclusive for News Nation. We were standing outside the apartment as they were hauling all the goods out. All of the evidence that they removed from Bryan Kohberger's apartment, this was what it looked like right after they had executed that warrant. There is one thing, though, that they did not redact that I want to play for you right now, and it is so telling. It is a detail that, once again, sent shivers down my spine. They talk about when they were in the apartment, one of the doors inside the apartment is locked. Can you guess which one? Let's roll the tape so you can hear it for yourself.
Talbot. The bedroom door is locked. You want us to boot it?
Yeah. You need anything? Your clipboard?
No,
Okay.
he's got it. Thank you, guys.
Just the one locked door?
Yeah. And we didn't boot it because the keys actually worked. What?
Oh, sweet. Oh, even better.
It's locked because there's only one lock.
Later today, we're going to...
I'll talk later. Yeah.
I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough, see what we can see.
For several months now, we have heard Bryan Kohberger compared to one of the most infamous serial killers, from sharing a degree in criminology to both being 28 years old when they allegedly committed their first murders, both of them quadruple homicides. And now today, another eerie similarity took place in the Latah County Court, making us wonder, is Bryan Kohberger modeling himself after Dennis Rader, who was the BTK killer?
There are parallels here with Kohberger and DeAngelo. DeAngelo went to school and got his degree in criminal justice. He became an intern at Roseville PD, and then ultimately was a cop, always committing fetish burgs and numerous sexual assaults in Northern California. Here, Kohberger's doing the same thing. In addition, look at the crime that Kohberger has been accused of. It's going into a residence at a time when the occupants are likely going to be asleep or falling asleep, and then killing them. That's exactly what the Golden State Killer was doing. I would not be surprised if Kohberger actually studied DeAngelo and the Golden State Killer case.
At first, I didn't follow it too closely, but then for some reason, I was picking up on things. And again, yeah, as you said, they just seem so similar to what we went through 45 years ago. And it's just spooky about, he even resembles Bundy in his face. Someone on TikTok had taken a picture of Bundy and the suspect in the Idaho case and compared them. And again, it's just very freaky how they resemble one another. How he stalked the girls. We were told that Bundy had stalked Cheryl and that she was his main target. And he was upset because there were some
But we are learning something tonight about Bryan Kohberger and his predilections. On his phone, according to People Magazine and News Nation's reporting as well, on Bryan Kohberger's phone, numerous pictures of one of the victims. I had a chance to talk with Steve Helling, who's investigative reporter with People Magazine, about some of the findings regarding that piece of information, the fact that Kohberger's phone had loads of pictures of one of the victims. This is our conversation earlier.
So, somebody who's very familiar with the investigation says that after they arrested Bryan Kohberger, they took his phone, which of course is what you would expect. And now that they've been looking at his phone, they have all of his communications. They have all of the things that you would have on your phone. And one of the things that they looked at were the pictures. And there are pictures of at least one of the victims in his photo roll. We don't know the details of those pictures. We don't know whether they are pictures he took from a distance. We don't know if they're pictures he downloaded from her social media. But he had pictures of one of the female victims on his phone.
The person who is featured on Bryan Kohberger's phone, the female victim who is featured on Bryan Kohberger's phone, is the same person that he was reaching out to on social media. And also that the photos were not taken by Bryan Kohberger, they were downloaded off of that victim's Instagram. So he had taken the pictures from that victim's Instagram. And then I also have this reporting that Bryan Kohberger followed both Kaylee and Maddie on Instagram, but Kohberger liked every one of Maddie's photos. Maddie's on the right, her best friend Kaylee's on the left. Kohberger had liked all of Maddie's photos compared to liking just a couple of the ones on Kaylee's account. He followed both, but he liked all of Maddie's, and compared to liking just a couple of them on Kaylee's account. So that may give us a little bit more insight as to potentially who it was that he had downloaded and kept on his phone, which female victim's pictures were on his phone.
Well, what we learned in this page and a half here is that they haven't gotten any of that. Okay, not just the no DNA of the victims that got tracked back anywhere, but also no connection between Mr. Koberger and the victims. Guys, this sounds a lot like they found nothing on his devices. They didn't find anything on his cell phone or on his tower that show that he was stalking these people, getting into their social media, had any knowledge or connection with them whatsoever. So that's another big, huge piece of the puzzle that's missing here, because we don't know how or why he would have identified these people.
We're all talking about this, and as this goes to court tomorrow, today something very weird happened. Photo kind of out of nowhere from 5 years ago from a magazine called NCC Magazine, Northampton Community College Magazine. 2018 lecture and Q&A with famed author Margaret Atwood. Isn't that a nice picture? Except for that whole business about the guy who's seated in the front row clutching his copy of The Handmaid's Tale. It's kind of like a sea of women who went to this, predominantly feminist author's lecture, and Bryan Kohberger took a front row seat, smiling, has picture taken right there beside, right there. You can see it underneath the banner that says Northampton Community College. That's Margaret Atwood standing right there in the middle. It's just all very weird. But he did graduate from that school that year. He got his degree in arts and psychology. And if you have read or if you have seen The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, it's about a futuristic society where women produce children for the ruling class, kind of like slave women. Not good when you are convicted or when you are accused, years later, 5 years later, of murdering 3 women and a man.
Hello, my name is and I am inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, this study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense, with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. In the event that your most recent offense was not one that led to a conviction, you may still participate. Additional surveys are included after the open-ended section as to best understand and your unique traits. The study should take about 15 to 20 minutes to fully complete. What do you make of this guy?
Well, certainly much has been made out of this post, and I think it should be from the standpoint of what he chose to inquire about. And I think he was really trying to relate to the criminal mind, perhaps struggling with his criminal mind, again, if he's convicted of this crime. So it makes a lot of sense. I think it's very telling that he would choose this particular project as he was perhaps in the infancy of thinking about committing these crimes.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, do you think there's anything to the possibility of someone trying to get some first-hand data, right, in a sick, really sick research project by actually committing the crime?
Yes, absolutely. I think all along, from his studying psychology in college and then getting into criminology as a graduate student and so on, I think he was trying to understand himself. And so, yes, I think that really, he was trying to understand what is it going to feel like when I do this, is what I really think that it is. But, I think that one of the most telling things, and perhaps you have that you were going to put up, is the post that he did, or it seems like he did, where he called himself Papa Rogers, because that is a big clue, in my opinion, that he's really relating to Elliot Rogers, who is the #1 incel, like the Papa incel, the most respected, the one who created that attack on college students in Santa Barbara. So, that was his pseudonym. Again, I think it will turn out that that was his pseudonym. Certainly, it was. I don't know how he thought that nobody was going to figure that out, but we'll see.
So let's bring in people in the business of profiling people just like him and making cases that hold in court. Retired FBI agent, Law and Justice contributor Jennifer Coffindaffer, and Laura Richards. She was a top criminal profiler at New Scotland Yard and the FBI. Laura, good to have you on the show. Coffindaffer, as always. So I start with you, Jennifer. What is your reaction to what we have learned?
Well, it's big news, but it's also supportive news. It's nothing that's surprising that he would possibly be stalking other individuals. Also, it's not surprising that he would have been condescending or treat women differently than men based on what we know.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what evidence they could get from the car itself, that there has to be some connection there. Jennifer?
Female there. I think all of this speaks to possible, hatred toward women and something that just built up inside of him, and he lashed out.
Have it at his apartment or anyplace else. Well, I believe that nothing that was used in this crime ever made it back to the apartment, ever made it to the office, and ever made it to his parents' home. The car.
Talk a little further on that, because to your point, he did have several weeks to clean, and we know that when he was out front of his parents' house prior to the arrest, he was still cleaning, still disposing of things. So I don't think he would have waited that long to finally get
nothing that was used in this crime ever made it back to the apartment, ever made it to the office, and ever made it to his parents' home. The car.
Coffindaffer.
What stuck out to me the most, sorry, there was an interruption there, but what stuck out to me the most in this video is his just trying to convince her things that really weren't true. He goes through this whole discussion about somebody coming into the intersection and that they were going to stop, and that's the reason he did it. And then she says, well, no, I didn't see that. So it's kind of like him trying to buffalo her. Well, in Pennsylvania, we do it this way. And so I think for me, it just gives me insight as to the way he tries to manipulate a situation to have it make sense and go on his side.
I'm looking at the Pennsylvania.
The attitude of Brian Kohlberger and what his colleagues said last night, that he seemed to always want to be the smartest person in the room. As you listen to how this traffic stop went down, take a look.
From laws like Pennsylvania might not even have that law, but in Washington we do.
I'm actually just from a very rural area, so we just don't have crosswalks.
Oh.
Unless I visit an area where there are crosswalks, and then it's not very frequent.
Yeah.
I do apologize if I was asking you too many questions about the law. I wasn't trying to
No, not at all. Like, I understand you're not from here, so if you don't, a lot of people don't know a bunch of laws. Like, I only know it because this is what I do. But yeah, if you're ever curious on any more laws, just RCW, and they can be hard to read because it's in like legal language. But hope that helps.
Definitely.
Yep. Have a good day.
Thank you for watching.
Like that. And the fact that it escalated so quickly and that he was terminated in his first semester there would suggest to me that his behavior really was egregious, that it was something that had become a big problem for the department and the university. And so I wanted to just give that as a little bit of background. But to the extent that that this letter, which I don't believe the letter has been completely authenticated yet, but if it is in fact true and the timeline is true, then this is something that could have absolutely contributed to him reaching a tipping point in his rage and anger and leading him to strike out in this terrible murder situation.
Yeah, we don't have our hands on the letter yet, but we've had the essence of it authenticated by a source close to the investigation. And that's the next best thing without actually getting your hands on a copy of the termination
Brian Kohberger allegedly dumped trash into the garbage cans of his parents' neighbors as he hid evidence linking him to the 4 Idaho student murders.
My gut tells me that it is Kaylee, but my investigation as a journalist and as a reporter who has been digging into this for months now tells me it is either Kaylee or Maddie. The evidence doesn't really narrow it down to one of them, but my gut says Kaylee. But I do believe that all of the evidence points to one of the victims in the upstairs bedroom was the initial target, and that there was only one victim targeted. Unfortunately, that means the 3 other victims were just collateral damage.
Kohberger and that knife traveled 2,500 miles until he reached his new home in Pullman, Washington, and Washington State University.
Here, that this was someone who killed for the thrill of the kill. Someone who killed because he wanted to kill someone. Right? And these types of killers, I think, strike a huge level of fear in the community, because we look at a case like this and allegations like this and we say, wow, there was no way to prevent this.
Don't miss anything, but let's ask the person who said it, former FBI agent, News Nation contributor, Jennifer Coffindaffer. Thanks very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it. All right, so take me through this. Your theory is that they're asking about January 2021, not just to be inclusive, but because they may actually know something?
Well, whenever you're a law enforcement officer and you're meeting with your prosecutor and you're putting together these search warrant packages and subpoenas that we haven't even seen, you very specifically outline the date range that you want. And you have to have a reason for wanting this date range. I think it's very interesting. It specifically tunes into TikTok, Tinder, and then also Google. And it also is very specific to particular people. Ethan is not even considered in these particular set of warrants. And so I think that gives us some clues. It tells us that law enforcement believes possibly that they had a connection well prior to the time frame we thought. And that could either be through social media or through physically meeting them on a visit there.
And you think that it's possible that he may have chosen Washington State University to get his degree or to study because of some sort of relationship connection to the victims?
I think it's possible. Certainly law enforcement is going to be looking in every direction, including that direction. Could that have led him to choose this university clear across the country from Pennsylvania, where he had previously attended for his undergraduate and his master's degree? What took him there? That has to be at least considered. And when you look at this time frame they chose, I think that gives us a pointer as a possibility.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.